Tonight, we are sounding the alarm. Now is the time to protect the right to vote, everyone's right to vote. Not next week or once the nonsense in Texas is over or the fraud in Arizona is done, if it's ever going to be done. Not when the next election comes around, but in fact, now. Each moment wasted is another moment for Republicans to stop more of us from exercising that right. And that's how it's going to go. In a brand new report, the Brennan Center for Justice finds that just since the start of this year, 2021, 18 states have passed 30 laws to restrict voting access. 18. We're only halfway through the year. You can bet more are coming. Last night, President Biden reiterated that he wouldn't advocate for getting rid of or weakening the filibuster in order to pass voter protections. He said, and I quote, "I want to make sure we bring along not just all the Democrats, we bring along Republicans who I know better. They know better than this," end quote. I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. President, but Republicans apparently do not know better. Just listen to yourself earlier this month.
To me, this is simple. This is election subversion. It's the most dangerous threat to voting and the integrity of free and fair elections in our history.
It was a really good speech at the National Constitution Center. He hit all the right points, except how to fix it. Because Republicans don't know better. Well, I don't know, maybe they do know better. They just don't care. Case in point, the Associated Press reviewed the more than 3 million ballots cast in Arizona in the 2020 presidential election and found 182 possible voter fraud cases under review. The minute anything's unusual, it looks like voter frauds. They put it aside. Of the 182, only 4 have been charged. 4. 2 registered Democrats, 2 registered Republicans. No one's been convicted. No votes in Arizona were counted twice. But Republicans in the state are still, after 3 months, carrying out a fake fraud in Maricopa County. It has not ended. They don't know better. You can knock down their election conspiracies over and over and over again, even in a court of law, as has been done, and they will still tell you that there is fraud. It is embarrassing. It is shameful. Republicans used to be afraid of shame. But now the entire GOP says the quiet part out loud, shame be damned. It's why similar idiotic fake audits are being attempted in other states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They want to subvert the will of the people to stay in power. I'd like to wait for Republicans to wake up and do the right thing, but that isn't going to happen. They don't know better, Mr. President. What they do know is that their efforts to keep voting safe are working. Not keeping voting safe, they're just working to keep people away from ballots. More people in more states are going to find it harder to vote the next time they go to the polls because of voter security efforts by the GOP. And those people are, by and large, people of color, the poor, students, busy working moms. So, folks, Democrats have got to meet the moment with what the moment demands. No more half measures, no watered-down bills that are amenable to Republicans. Democrats must blow up the filibuster. Or if you're a traditionalist and you kind of like the filibuster, just carve out an exception for the most important thing, voting reform. I'm not some blind idealist. I don't expect that this message will change the minds of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema or Joe Biden, but it should, and the alarm needs to be sounded by you as much as by me. Over and over again, if Senate Democrats eliminate the filibuster rule and pass the For the People Act, the right of all eligible Americans to vote will be protected. If they don't, more Americans will find that right has been diminished. That may not seem obvious to you. That what does diminished mean? Either you have the right to vote or you don't. Well, all across America, I can show you what diminishing the right to vote actually means. It discourages people from voting. It intimidates them. It makes it hard for them to vote. Some of you might really not get what is so urgent about this moment. You might have never had a hard time voting. I've never had a hard time voting. You've never been stopped at the polls. But just because it doesn't happen to you or to me doesn't mean it should be happening to anyone in this country. It's in the Constitution. You should be outraged for the people whose rights are being diminished. And 2, just because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean it can't happen to you in the future. The right to vote, as we're learning, is not a given. And if one person's right to vote is curtailed or threatened, the overall will of the people is threatened. So get up and sound the alarm like I am. This country has always tried to move toward a more perfect union. People have died for that. The least we can do now is not stay quiet and let Republicans destroy that. Leading off our discussion tonight, our Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. He's running for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. And Cliff Albright, co-founder and executive director of Black Voters Matter Fund. He's the host of the podcast, Black Power Revisited. Thanks to both of you for being here this morning. Representative Kenyatta, you and I talked on Monday, and you made it clear. You sort of had a moment in which you said, let's stop talking about the BS about this. Let's stop tweeting about John Lewis and all the great things about him. Let's get this done because there will not be another chance. If these states get away with what they're doing, that is the whole ball game.
You know, Allie, you said it very well in your lead up. We know exactly who Republicans are. We know exactly who the opponents to a free and fair elections are. Now the question for each and every one of us is, who are we? What are we willing to do in this moment? And I did say it earlier this week. It is not enough for us to lionize the civil rights heroes, the giants who fought, bled, and died to get us to where we are. You know, we've written about, learned about their sacrifice. Now the question is, what are we willing to sacrifice? Democracy requires something of us. I gave a speech at Gettysburg talking about the moment that we find ourselves in, talking about the bloody battle that was fought and waged on that hollow ground to preserve the Union. And now we have to each look in the mirror and ask, what are we willing to risk to preserve the Union for our kids and for our grandkids? You know, Cliff, Rashad, so many others were arrested protesting to ensure the right to vote. So many people have been standing up, putting their bodies on the line to ensure that this experiment in democracy sustains for the future. And let's be very clear, this is an experiment. There is nothing written on a tablet somewhere that says America has to succeed. It succeeds because every time we see a new generation of people step up to call us higher. And if we are silent in this moment, if we think that this is some movie where it all works out in the end, we will be sadly mistaken if we lose this fight. I have zero faith in the arsonists that are trying to burn down our democracy. As you said, we need to get rid of the filibuster and get to work to preserve our union.
So, Cliff,